Welcome back into the final play. I'm Jennifer Hale here with sports analyst Gerry Valancourt. Gerry, the Saints have now inked linebacker Curtis Lofton to a 5-year deal. He's a pretty versatile linebacker. He can really play all three positions. If you want to draw a mental picture, a lot of folks are comparing him to Scott Shanley, except a little bit younger. What do you think of this move?
And a whole lot better. He's a much better football player, too. He's a rangier player. He covers more ground. He's very, very talented. This would be considered, Jennifer, in the category of a great get, because it upgrades you immediately at that linebacker position. And those are positions that the Saints had to upgrade coming into this season. So that's a terrific signing for them.
All right, so you got Lofton, then they signed Chris Chamberlain a little bit earlier. What does this say for Jonathan Vilma's future?
Well, it doesn't say much, because even if they didn't sign him, I still thought Vilma's future with the Saints might be somewhat questionable because of age, the surgery, and the cap hit. When you put those three together, and the fact that he hasn't graded out on the positive side as far as performance is concerned, so he had a few things going against him. I know he was a leader defensively and all, but he was a leader at a position whose performance has slipped. And you always have to keep one eye on the field, one eye on the cap, and that didn't speak favorably as far as Vilma is concerned. They keep saying that they may keep him, but I think that's buying time as you await the suspensions to be handed down from the NFL.
We're going to get to that in just a second. One more piece of information about Chamberlain. He's coming off a stretch with the St. Louis Rams, so he knows Coach Steve Spagnuolo's way of doing defense, his system. How valuable is that going to be in a world where you're dealing with suspensions, you're dealing with the loss of a head coach? Maybe he can coach up these other defensive players,
I think that's a great point. It's a great point because it's the Bill Parcells rule. You always want to have guys in the locker room that are categorized as your guys. So you're familiar with the defensive coordinator. You know about his philosophy. So any quirks or personality type things that the new guys have to get used to, you now have a guy that can explain all that. It also helps transfer a lot of the communication and the chemistry between the two. But as a coach, you always want to have some built-in allies in that locker room, especially someone that can also play. So I think that's another terrific acquisition for the Saints.
Come this time next week, Coach Sean Payton will be serving his suspension. He will not be allowed to have any contact with the Saints 7 days from now. Gerry, what does he spend this last week doing? What is his top priority?
You know what, Jennifer? We were talking on the talk show this past week. I would like to see Sean Payton address the NFL owners if they'll allow him to, where he addresses them and tells him what he did wrong and what his feelings are. Because what has happened, the last apology that took place this week is being interpreted by many people as just being an orchestrated public relations document. I would like to see him at the ownership group speak personally, look everyone in the eye, explain what happened, and then issue another apology then. I think that would speak volumes for him, and I think it would go a long way into starting that path of getting back into the good graces of a lot of people.
And we do know he will be attending the owners' meeting in Palm Beach. He's planning to arrive late Monday night for some sessions on Tuesday. Don't know yet if he will in fact address the owners in that way.
Or if they'll let him.
Oh, good point. What does he need to do to prepare this team to function without him when he gets back to New Orleans? And can he? Is this something that you can coach someone else up on, so to speak, when you're talking about drafts and trade deadlines so far in advance and kind of spur-of-the-moment decisions?
Well, the Saints have a blueprint. He has a blueprint. He has a philosophy blueprint. He has some guys on the staff that are familiar with all of that. And you can only do so much because everyone knows what the needs are. Everyone knows where the decisions have to be made as far as personnel. The big X factor is when the clarity sets in after the suspensions, you'll have a clearer picture. But then after all that, in coaching, the natural personality of the guys that will take his place and have all the other work to do, that has to follow its own path. They can't duplicate Sean Payton. They can't mimic him in any way, shape, or form. So that molding in the early part of all of this, when you start your preseason workouts in April and as you get into camp, that's going to be absolutely vital. You got to let the new guys be themselves. They will teach their way. They'll try to keep everything in the blueprint. How about the big mystery question? What happens during the yearly suspension? What if this particular group has a successful year? Then what do you do? So there's a lot of answers, and there's a lot of what-ifs and maybes and things that won't be answered till later.
And speaking of question marks, who will take over for Sean Payton as interim coach? We still haven't heard that one. There's the possibility of Steve Spagnuolo,
right,
new defensive coordinator who has head coaching experience. You've got offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael, who got a trial run at the job this past season, or someone from the outside. Who do you like?
I think if you bring someone in from the outside, you're asking them to do too much and too soon. I would rather see Spagnuolo just coach the defense. I know he has head coaching experience, but the defense is such an important area of play for the Saints where they must improve, Jennifer. I would let him focus in on the defensive side of the football. Let Carmichael do the offense, even if you have the two coordinators. But someone has to have the final word. Defense is just too important for this club. I would like to see Spagnuolo focus on the defensive side of the football and that alone for now, even though he's talented enough, but the responsibility is just too big with that side of the ball.
The job is huge, and Gerry, I would love your input on this. I see one of the big problems for this defense next year being that every time they step on the field, they are going to be scrutinized so much harsher than every other team. Every call is going to go against them, likely.
You know what, though? There's a lot to be said for, and it sounds cliche-like, but it can be so true. You can only use it for so long, but it might fuel them at the beginning of the season, Jennifer, if it's going to be the Saints against the world, so be it. I don't think these penalties are going to take away from the physicality of the game in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that you're going to see a tremendous amount of questionable calls and flags being thrown. Football will remain football. It has to be, because that's what sells the sport. The players, they just have to communicate to the players as they teach the game, and they're not going to change their teaching, to continue playing the way you're supposed to play in the NFL. Because if you don't, if they start playing with a lot of anxiety and they're apprehensive and they're late on hits and they're afraid to be labeled, that's going to ruin your entire season. Continue to play football, the hits within the legal ramifications of the game, and so be it, and let the officials decide. You got to just play.
Coming up next week on Sunday, this time next week, there's going to be a huge rally, at least it's in the works, to free Sean Payton, so to speak, who that's protesting the season-long suspension of head coach Sean Payton. You've been taking aim at this rally all week long on your talk show. It really bugs you.
Well, it bugs me for the standpoint of this, and I just want the fans to think about this before you attend the rally. I get the fact that they want to be very, very patient, Jennifer, as far as supporting the coach and all the things that they want to do. But understand this. If you've been asking other people to be accountable for their actions, whether it's politics, whether it's teachers, whether it's the police force, what have you, you might lose the right to do that in the future if you can't hold a football organization accountable for what they have done. Now, what we forget here is the fan has caught a big slap on this too, because this is the fan base that always shows up to support its football team. I think that they've painted the target on the wrong people, that you can't be mad at the NFL. You can be maybe for 48 hours because of the severity of the sentence, but it's not the NFL that brought this upon the Saints. The Saints brought it upon themselves. You have to hold them accountable as well. The risk, you might lose the right to hold others accountable if you can't hold this group accountable.
Always wise thoughts and interesting fodder for the brain. We are going to be back in just a moment. We're not letting you leave yet. We're switching gears. We're going to be talking Final Four action, also in town next weekend. Keep it right here. The Final Play returns in just a moment. Welcome back into the Final Play. I'm here with Gerry Valancourt of 106.1 Radio The Ticket. Thanks so much for your insight on football. Now, of course, returning to basketball, the NCAA tournament. 4 teams have now punched their tickets to New Orleans for next weekend. Gerry, you're going to help us get to know them a little bit. I know UNC was your top pick. They're out now. Kentucky, could they take it all?
I'm 3 of 4. Thank you very much, just so the listening audience will know. Yes, I know I was wrong about North Carolina. They lost to Kansas. 4 different teams, 4 similar styles. Obviously, they're all very good. Obviously, they're all well coached. You have Rick Pitino at Louisville, up-tempo club, like to pressure the basketball, press capabilities, quickness, inconsistent jump shooting team. Although, over their past 4 games, they have been on fire, scoring out of the norm. So if they were a stock, they're trending upwards. And then you look at an Ohio State team. Again, all teams very athletic. Another team with quickness. They can go power along the baseline. They have attack off the dribble capability. You're going to see a similar theme with all of these clubs. And then you have Kentucky. They have the length to protect the rim, one of the leading shot blocking teams in the United States. They can also attack you off the dribble off various positions. Now keep that point in mind because it's very, very important. And then you look at Kansas, another club that likes to play at 94 feet, motor it up and down the floor, attack the offensive glass with their quickness and their athleticism. What makes this Final Four so entertaining is that all 4 teams have attack off the dribble perimeter players. And I think that's absolutely vital in championship basketball because defenses will be so intense and the passion and attack level will be so high, the best way to counter that is to attack the defense right off the dribble. And if you can do that from a variety of positions, it speaks very well for you. And all 4 teams can do that.
So who do you see taking it all? Who has the advantage, if anybody, yet? In your
Well,
opinion?
yeah, I think Kentucky will win the national championship. I'll have to stay with Kentucky because North Carolina, Kentucky was my pick for the finals. The beauty of this thing, too, Jennifer, is you're going to have Louisville against Kentucky. Pitino used to coach at Kentucky. Pitino helped John Calipari get the job at Massachusetts. Now the state of Kentucky is going to be well represented. And then you have the Ohio State Buckeyes with their tremendous basketball history, and then with Kansas as well. I think the edge goes to Kentucky to win the national championship. I think they're too long. They have the rim protector in Davis. They have the off-the-dribble attack game. It's just going to be fun for me, for working for the Hornets, to look at guys to see who will project into the NBA. So Kentucky should be the national champ this year. If they're not, John Calipari may have some decisions to make in case the NBA comes calling.
Back to the idea of projecting into the NBA. Love Jared Sullinger out of Ohio State. Just been a fantastic year for him. Who do you see out of this tournament making it big in the NBA?
I like Davis out of Kentucky. I love his length at 7 feet with a wingspan. He can run. He's a little bit weak right now. He reminds me of Marcus Camby, but he's got the softest hands on the shot block. He's got dynamite timing to the rim. You know, another thing with Kentucky, Kentucky is one of the leading shot blocking teams in the league, but Kentucky very rarely gets called for the foul on the shot block. He blocks the shot. He keeps the ball in play. That allows Kentucky to get up and down the floor. I think that they win it all.
And who's your tournament MVP?
I have no idea on that one. This could be awfully intriguing because there is talent. And you know what I'm going to do? I'll go on a limb. I'll say Gilchrist out of Kentucky wins it all. Out of the swing position. I think he'll be the guy that'll get it done for them to complement everyone else.
Going to be a great weekend, that's for sure.
Yes, it will.
The Kentucky fans swamped New Orleans for the SEC tournament, and I'm sure they will be back in full force this upcoming weekend.
Thanks, Jen.
Jerry B, you're on the air 4 to 7 every day, Monday through Friday.
And we got 5 Hornet games this week as well.
You're going to be a busy man, aren't you?
On the radio, same station. Yes, indeed. Thanks, Jen.
We sure do appreciate your time. Keep it right here. We're not done yet. We've got much more on the final play coming up, including my final word on Sean Payton's final preparations before he begins his suspension. We're back in just a moment.